金色ラブリッチェ。
Well then, the first of our 3 days off passed. And the power had been restored.
どんより。もうやだ。
Even later than any of us expected.
今日中は復旧の見通しなし？町の方が水が引かないとかで車も来られないんだとさ。
We were a little too optimistic. Since yesterday, everyone's anxiety levels were at the "this is just a random day without power" stage. But it was looking like we couldn't make it past the hill for yet another day. The power being restored was, of course, way further down on the list. We had now become full-fledged survivors.
困りましたね、シルビー様が。
Will this get in the way of any official duties?
いえ、3連休の公務は調整しました。ただもう帰りたくない。庶民の暮らしも良いものですわ。すごい勢いでこの寮に馴染み出しています。
My condolences. It seemed likely she would be staying over more in the future.
でも停電は困ったわね。この子も完全に動けなくなっています。ボディーガードなのに充電ができないと脆いですわね。
How was it in Elena's room?
雑魚寝というのでしたか？悪くありませんでしたわ。ご命令されたとはいえ、人生で王族の方と枕を並べる機会が来ようとは。布団はいいけど枕がいまいちだったわね。私の部屋枕1個しかないから着てるもの丸めて使ったからね。だからちょっと肩が張ってる。でも楽しかったわ。みんなでお布団に入った後も夜遅くまでおしゃべりして。言うほど遅くなかったよ。11時くらい。聞いてよオーロ。シルビーって10時過ぎると急にくっそ眠そうになんの。レーナ。
I think it's good to be healthy, personally.
眠くないとは言うんだけどね。もう全身ボリボリかいて必死で起きようとしてんの。ボリボリなんて書いてないわ。書いてたかしら。もうあの辺りの記憶がない。王族は常に節制ある生活をするものですの。ああ、神にゃんも眠そうだったね。時々白目向いて。
Her eyes rolled back.
おだまり。こほん。妃殿、そのくらいで。眠たさついでに王女様たちのあれあれなぎなぎなトークも聞いちゃったーん。ちょっと何を聞き出したんですの。
I'm curious too.
実はね。
妃殿。
はーい。
まったくあんなこと口外できるわけがない。
つまりエルも聞いたのね。
まあ成り行きで。
何を言いましたの私たち。別におかしなことは言ってございませんわよね。
はい。
It sounded like a fun girls-only night. It was all well and good that they were so close, but...
2日目となると困ることが出てきましたね。
Elsan surveyed the foyer.
ねえ、ラストで飽きてきたんだけど、いつになったら出れるの？知りません。
Sylvie's group were pretty much the only energetic ones left among us. Everyone else was depressed. Not only were they tired, but their moods had taken a turn for the worse. There were also far fewer people out in the foyer. Everyone was holding up in their rooms.
新しい環境に移った人間は一度はこうなりますが、望まずにはるかに不便な環境とあってはやはり精神的な疲労が強すぎるようです。
After all, our fun 3-day weekend suddenly turned into a survival experience. Everyone was irritable, but they couldn't pin it on any one person. Gloom swirled throughout the dormitory.
電気がない娯楽のなさも問題ですが、何より飢えと寒さですね。
今日も寒いよね。
The rain had stopped, but it had been quite frigid since earlier that morning. Worse yet, it was still mostly cloudy. There wasn't much hope of the temperature going up. Those who walked out in the foyer were still doing better. Most had confined themselves to their rooms and were huddled up under their covers. This was a cheap expression, but everyone was suffering. The temperaments of anyone isolated in their rooms would likely continue to decline. It would be best if they came out of their rooms, even if we had to force them, but...
何か温かいものが食べられるといいんだけど、もうお湯すら確保するのが難しいですものね。
How much food do we have left?
もう残っている子は少ないでしょう。今夜からはカロリーベースの話が必要になってくる。
There may still have been those with a stockpile, but I didn't want to bring that to light. Starting tonight, would these girls be staving of hunger with nothing but soft drinks and licking sugar? A situation I hope to have avoided. I went outside.
シルビーたちは寒いの大丈夫な？これくらいなら全然平気よ。むしろ日本は暑すぎると思っていたので、ちょうどいいくらいですわ。
北欧でも特に北にあるソルティレージュなら、この時期は常に寒波に覆われていますからね。
They say people in Finland go short-sleeved until it hits minus 100 degrees Celsius. Is that what your people are like?
スウェーデン警察にいる私の知人など、これくらいの寒さなら半袖で過ごしているくらいです。
People from Nordic countries were incredible.
日本人はダメですわ。寒い。慣れって大切ね。
As far as Japan went, even the northern tip of Hokkaido probably experienced a mild heat wave now and again. On the other hand then, how about Japanese summers?
その話はいい。夏はもういい。
夏という言葉、二度と聞きたくありません。
Right. All three instantly looked sick.
夏に比べたらこのくらいの寒さ天国よ。だって暑いと逃げ場がないもの。
Sounds like this past summer was pretty hard on you.
何かしら理由をつけて、もう留学はやめ国に帰ろうと756回思ったわ。住まいにした別邸にプールがあるのが救いでしたわね。そうね。一日中プールで遊んでギリギリ日本に残る気力を振り絞ったわ。エルには悪いことをしたわね。一緒に入らなかったの？
入れません。私は護衛として常に監視を怠れません。常に臨戦態勢としてフルプレートアーマーを着込み、プールサイドでお二人を見張っておりました。
地獄だ。
務めですから。
This woman would be truly astounding if she were anywhere but peaceful Japan. Yeah, that aspect certainly might make the cold preferable. If there was any way to avoid the cold, that would be...
1、2、3、4
Moving your body was plenty.
あかねちん、何してんの？あ、レイナ先輩、おはようございます。
It was her first year in the dorm, Akane-chan. She stood out due to her booming voice.
朝のラジオ体操ができなかったので、体を動かしたくてうずうずしちゃって。先輩たちも一緒にやりませんか？あったまりますよ。
She was as spirited as ever.
いいわね。面白そう ところでラジオ体操って何？興味深いですわね。
A portion of the group was fully into the idea. I'm going to check out some other stuff, then I'll be back. You guys have fun dancing around. I escaped. Now then. Keeping an eye out when there was no power restoration in sight was a waste of time. What was more important at the moment was this. If my calculations were correct, this should be far more useful right now. Then again, it was currently a day off. Not even teachers were at the school today since the road was blocked off, so it was completely deserted. I had no way to get inside, but... I smashed the window. With Sylvie's royal powers on my side, they should forgive me for a single window, similar to the incident from last week. The power outage also meant no alarm sounded. I got inside with ease. Now then. Oh, but I couldn't get into any of the classrooms without a key either, huh? I wondered where the keys were. The staff room? No, they should have changed where they were stored for security purposes lately. Would I end up smashing a few more windows until I accomplished what I came here to do?
Ora はいた？
寮にはいませんでした。どこへ行ったのでしょう。
道を求めて森に入って迷ったとか？
森はどこもかしこも滑りやすくて危険だと昨日見ているのでないと思いますが。みんな
大変大変！どうしたの？ほら、昨日もらったコンビーフの缶、食料が貴重になるかもって今日のために残しといたでしょ？あれがないの！オーロのやつ独り占めして逃げたよ！あらあら、武士は食わねど高用事などという日本の格言は迷信だったようですわね。
もともと市松殿のカップ麺で得た対価だ。彼がどうしようと何も言えないが。
一言くらい言ってほしかったわね。コンビーフ食べたことなかったのに。それでその卑しい豚はどこに？エル、どうかした？
いえ。学園から煙が。
Open air fires are harsher than I thought.
オーロ？何をやっているの？
Oh, you're here already? I was planning to call them over when it was done.
これは大きな鍋ですね。
この前行ったラーメン屋に置いてあったわ。
Yeah, a so-called stock pot. I was in the process of putting it over a flame, just like the restaurant, and boiling the soup down. I figured a school like Noble Academy that cultivates elites of many disciplines would have a kitchen for rearing elite chefs too. When I went looking, I found this.
探った？
Miraculously, it was all unlocked. The gas was shut off, so I couldn't use the burners, but I borrowed some bricks along the edges of the flower beds adorning the academy and made use of an improvised stove, which I was currently heating over a flame. But fire's tougher to work with than it looks. If the fire got too hot, you couldn't get close, and if it cooled down too much, it got smoky. It was difficult to obtain the perfect balance.
変わりましょう。行軍経験があるので焚き火くらいはできます。
That would be a big help. I didn't want to make a bonfire, I wanted to cook. That's what I needed to focus on.
何似てるん？あ、コンビーフ。
Yup. Oh, I used the canned goods without asking. That's okay, I assume. It looked pretty scarce using a huge pot for just 5 cans of food though. Whether or not you could see the meat made a pretty big difference on your mood. In addition to utensils, I got salt, miso and soy sauce from the kitchen. I also got my hands on lard and dried sardines. I tossed in a fair amount and used them for the soup.
こっちのこれは何？ 白くてねちゃねちゃして。
It's udon. Udon balls. I also found flour to use for these in the kitchen.
おうどんが食べられるの？
That's what I was shooting for, but I probably put too much water content in and screwed it up. I wasn't exactly a competent cook. So I was considering making them into flour dumplings instead. Flour dumplings, balls of wheat flour kneaded with water then boiled. It was an optimal outcome for failed udon.
あ、水豚って何？食べたことないわ。楽しみ。
Judging by Sylvie's reaction, it'll probably be okay.
何を作りたいかはだいたいわかりましたわ。で、問題は献立よりむしろこの大きさ。
Mina-chan peered into the pot.
この大きさには馴染みがございませんけど、ざっと100人分ってとこだね。
More or less. That must have tipped them off to my plans right away. Starting with Sylvie, everyone began to giggle.
別に多少みんなでひもじい思いをするくらいで、飢えて危険とか栄養がどうのという話ではありませんわよ。
I get that we are not in too dire of straits, but it really is draining when you're cold and hungry. So I thought something to reassure everyone would help.
オーラのそういうところ、私大好きよ。うどんでなくて水豚ですか？珍しいですわね。味は保証できないけど、いっぱいあるのは保証するよ。
So, Sylvie, could you tell everyone you made it and hand it out without me?
どうして？配るのはいいけど、オーロが始めたんじゃない。
But listen. Things could get awkward if I advertised my involvement, so I'd rather detach myself from the situation while I still could. Sylvie hadn't caught on to that predicament though, how to handle this.
はいはい、団体さんいらっしゃい。わ、ほんとだ。炊き出しみたいですね。いい匂い。
With that thought in mind, the girls they retrieved from the foyer came running. I figured it would take a while after calling the boarders over for them to show up, but word had apparently spread after calling over just a handful. The first wave came quickly. The point being, they all saw me. Worst of all, they were from my class, Jogasaki's sympathizers. I guess it made sense they'd be from the same class given Elena's connections. This spelled trouble.
みんなお昼ご飯を作ったの。全員の分あるのよ。いっぱい食べて。ありがたいけど、作ったのってオーロが作ってくれたの。味見したけどとっても美味しいのよ。よね。
The three of them looked at me with indescribable expressions. Wah, not good. The same ambience from the classroom had reared its head at an awful moment. If put in the worst terms possible, you could describe what I was doing as hustling them with kindness. Their hatred for me was out of their own pride, so it would be difficult for them to accept me now. With that said, I doubted they could refuse with Sylvie standing there or smiles either. They were stuck, unable to accept or decline. Given the situation, they would likely ultimately do as Sylvie told them and eat, awkward setting and all. I had made this plan to alleviate their meal-related stress, but now I was going to stress them out. Up until today, I desperately tried to stay outside my designated clique as much as possible in an effort to avoid this awkward atmosphere. A setting where anyone, especially such a large group, was worried about me. I felt like a tumor here, and I hated it. I hadn't wanted to show off. I hadn't been trying to live through a golden time. I hadn't been trying to shine. I just... Ah! All of a sudden, there was a hysterical scream from behind me.
何ですかこれ？何ですかこれ？お鍋ですか？ちょっとあかね。
Ah, Akane-chan, huh? This girl shouldn't have any animosity against me.
すごいです先輩。こんなことできちゃうんですね。
I guess so. I probably should have stepped out a long time ago, but that ship had long since sailed.
器を持ってきました。この学園の調理室、大したものですね。100人分の食器が楽にありました。
100人分。このお鍋の大きさ、これって寮のみんなの分があるんですか？どうぞお上がりなさい。さすがに200杯分はないのでおかわりは多相談ですが。おいしそう。どうぞ食べて食べて。モーロが作ったの。とってもおいしいのよ。
She mentioned my name again. With the exception of Akane-chan, all of the other residents were backing off. I only hope this didn't take a turn for the worse.
ありがとうございます先輩。いただきます。
However, that assumption was transformed into needless worry in an instant. Akane-chan served herself without a care and took a bite. It was a soup with stock made from dried sardines, corned beef, and lots of lard. I put in 200 flour dumplings so each person could have 2. Perhaps you could call it Japanese-style Chinese flavor? To be blunt, it was the shabby kind of soup you'd expect them to put out at some cheap ramen restaurant. I used a bunch of tricks like thickening it up with starch, but its biggest selling point was this. It's warm.
おいしいっしょ。はい、おいしいです。そやな味付けですが、ま、旧大点ですわ。
限られた食材で大したものです。
A warm stock works wonders, and you can make anything taste good with salt. It really wasn't all that impressive. This was just the result of brainstorming how to leverage the limited cards I was dealt to their fullest potential.
ところであなた、オーロのお友達？
Another delicate question Akane-chan was having a hard time answering too, so I lended her a hand. Yeah, she's a nice person and has been friendly toward me since I transferred here.
そうなのね。それなら私ともお友達だわ。そんなお姫様と友達だなんて。いいじゃない。気軽にお話ししてほしいわ。どうしましょう。
As long as it's okay with you, why not?
ダメなわけないです。私なんかでよければぜひよろしくお願いします。ええ、よろしくね。あかねです。私、栗生あかねって言います。あかね、素敵な名前だわ。そうでしょうか。改めてよろしくね、あかね。こちらこそです。
She was grateful as could be. That made sense after hearing a princess say, "Let's be friends," out of nowhere. Here, eat before it gets cold. I butted in and offered her the soup.
はい。
Though it had only been 1 day's time, she was able to get a bite of warm food. That mere warmth was enough to...
美味しいです、先輩。本当に。
Hmm? Huh?
うわ、あかねちん、なんで泣くの？
Though she had been eating with a smile, droplets suddenly began to spill from the corners of Akane-chan's eyes. It was so unexpected it startled me. I could hardly believe someone as ordinarily cheerful as Akane-chan would break down crying.
いえ、わかりません。すみません。でも、なんか、美味しくて、体中にじわって広がって。
Akane-chan kept on shedding beads of tears. This made me go stiff. She had been so tense ever since yesterday. After she wasn't able to do radio calisthenics in an attempt to distract herself, the soup must have been what broke the tension for her. I knew that. It made sense, but why was it enough for her to cry? Whatever the reason, it bothered me that I got a girl to cry. It must have been the same for her. She always acted foolishly cheerful, and yet...
本当にいいの。本当に何でもないから。
Chieka? Who's that?
ありがとう、オルくん。すごく嬉しい。嬉しい。だから。自分でもよくわからないんですけどなんででしょうね。すごく美味しくて美味しいから先輩が私たちのために作ってくれたのがびっくりして、私たち先輩のことを疑ってたのに。疑う？まあいろいろね。オールは悪くないんだけどさ、難しいことがあったんだよ。なんかいろんな気持ちがぐちゃぐちゃになってごめんなさい。
It's okay, so calm down and eat. I pat her head. Flour dumplings are a lot like mochi, so if you sniffle while you eat it, it'll get stuck in your throat.
はい、すいません。
I'm not worried about it. It only makes sense that you'd be uneasy. That goes for everyone in the dorm. I'm sure you felt helpless and forced yourself to stay active. And that helplessness was enough to make you cry. Akane-chan wasn't the only one who had been forcing herself. Everyone had their own anxieties. Which was why you did a good job. It was admirable. It's difficult to act like your usual self because we are in this kind of situation. I believe your upbeat nature helped to support everyone, like with those radio calisthenics from before. This might be strange for me to say, but having you be your usual cheery self was a huge lifesaver. Thanks, Akane-chan. Eat slowly and be careful you don't choke. I'll keep doing this until you settle down. I pat her head until the heavy teardrops stopped. It wasn't as if I wanted to show off, but this was one of those moments where I had to act cool.
Ah, 私もいただこうかな。まあマストでお腹空いてるから。いいねいいね。どうぞどうぞ。水豚は一人二つね。じゃあ私も。はい2名様ご案内。メゴチンは食べるわよ。
After spending all of my time with the first years, things were worked out with the problematic 3 off behind us. And after that?
私らの分もあるの？温かいスープです。シルビア様の手料理。食べますわ。鍋の底まで舐め尽くしますわ。
One boarder after another came along. We had 100 people gathered, and the question of who made it had been deemed irrelevant.
あったかい、おいしい。大したものです。
And everyone was enjoying their first warm meal in a day.
すごいわ、オーラ。
I didn't do anything impressive. In a group of 100, this was an idea 50 or so people could come up with. Then again, I doubt that any of these high-class ladies would have the drive to break the academy windows. The commoners simply stepped in their place.
そうね。大したことはしてない。誰かの笑顔のために動くことは大したことではないけど、それを迷わずできるのがオーロのすごいところよ。
I didn't really get what she meant. Simply having Sylvie smile wide like she always did made it feel meaningful, yet not. As such, I wasn't able to ask her for any clarification.
あら。
晴れましたね。
The clouds dispersed. The sunshine from the south wrapped warmly around us.
これで少しは暖かくなるでしょう。